Yo. It's 7:40 on what day is it? On a Monday? Let's see what I can do here. That works. Yeah, 7:40 on a Monday, and today was a bit of a lazier day. I mean, I did get some stuff done. I got closer to my goals. And after a long day of not doing a whole lot, I went to the thrift store because, where else do I go? And at the thrift store, I met this very interesting woman named Sue, and I was talking with her, and turns out she was a theoretical physicist, and we had a very long and interesting conversation about many things. One of the things we talked about was her learning Mandarin. She started learning Mandarin when she was 50, I think, she said. And, she's gotten pretty far along in it. And, that's something you really don't see a lot nowadays. The people taking up new things like she does into their later years in their life. And I think that's super respectable of her. She was first, she got her degree in theoretical physics, and then she became a technical writer, like doing up documentation for stuff like aircrafts and whatnot. Very interesting person. And as we were talking, I realized that she was very interested in ideas, and I think we have that in common. As we chatted, there was another woman that came along. Her name was Jane, with a Y. And she stopped and said to Sue that, hey, I think we've talked before, like the last time I was here. And she's like, oh yeah, I think I remember you. And they started talking, and I was sort of in the conversation as well. And this lady, Jane, she got to talking a lot about her life story and, her wanting to be a nurse when she was younger and then getting a position there, doing what she loved, and really talking about people and how she liked people. And she was talking about, I think Churchill and his life and his family dynamics and stuff. It was, not to say it wasn't interesting stuff. It was interesting stuff, but it was quite different than the substance of our conversation that I was having with Sue beforehand. And when she left, when Jane left, we went back to talking about just ideas and interesting stuff like that, intellectually stimulating stuff that wasn't like personal, but it was stuff we both found that we got enjoyment out of talking about. And I mentioned this in our conversation as we were talking. I said, after Jane left, obviously, I said it's interesting to see how people of different backgrounds and different characters gravitate towards different things. They have different what's the word I used? They have different compulsions or persuasions to different parts of life. Like Jane, for example, she was very interested in people. And Sue and I, we were very interested in ideas. And it's not to say that you can't be interested in both of those things at the same time, because you definitely can, but just what we generally gravitate towards in everyday conversation. It's difficult to talk about this because I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I'm such a smart person, because I don't think of myself as super smart. I think of myself as quite the opposite, actually. But I do find myself having conversations with people who I find to be very intelligent, who I do share a lot of interest in talking subject matter with. If that makes sense. we gravitate towards the same topics in conversation, and they're usually impersonal, and they're more about like theoretical ideas rather than personal relationships and stuff like that. And I do enjoy those conversations a lot more because they're more fulfilling, I find, to explore topics rather than just to state things that have happened. And Sue, in her, I guess, in her intelligence, she liked spending her time doing things that were intellectually stimulating, such as like strategic board games. And that was one of her things. She liked exploring mathematical formulae, graph theory. And she was talking about how we're fairly distracted now with our cell phones. She wishes that cell phones were not a thing and that we just went back to living our simple lives, distraction free. And I mentioned that I mentioned this in agreement with her. I said that it's the immediacy that people expect from communication now that I feel like really puts a damper on our whole social sphere, whole social world. What's wrong? People expect that they can just talk to you right away whenever they want because they have your phone number. And she really, disdain is a strong word, but she really disliked the fact that when she was with people in conversation or just spending time with her loved ones, that they would be sort of distracted on their phones. Like she'd be hanging out with her daughter, and her daughter would be on her phones, and the only time she'd talk really is to say, "Did you know that so and so has this new product?" And Sue really didn't like that. Not only were the things that she was mentioning trivial, it also like her daughter being in that state of like distraction on her phone, it really took away from the moments that they shared together. And that sort of distraction is like, it's like a cancer, really. It's a cancer on our world. That's a little dramatic, but it is. I shared an anecdote with her saying I was riding a motorcycle down to school and I got a call from my friend. My phone was buzzing with my phone in my pocket, and I usually don't get phone calls, so I thought maybe it's important. So I pull over into a parking lot, I take off my helmet, turn the bike off, I pick up my phone, and it was just my friend who's already in class, the class that I was going to, saying, "Yo, dude, are you coming? Are you gonna be here?" It's like, dude, if I just had do not disturb on, or if we didn't have phones, if phones didn't exist, then I wouldn't be distracted like that. It wouldn't take away from that moment of me just like being on the motorcycle, having a good time, enjoying myself. That's what I really enjoy, being present. And my trip to London, it was very good for me in that way. Being present in the moment, talking with people who, also shared this ideal of just not having distractions in your life. And I found a lot of those people, actually. It's weird how I sort of gravitated towards those kinds of individuals. I ended up having a lot of conversations with people who sort of hated technology like I did. A bartender had a little Zune phone as like a 4-inch display, and this thing was a chonker. Like, even though it was small, length and width wise, its depth is like a thick boy. Is interesting phone, but that sort of design, or that choice in product is sort of it's a proclamation. It's him saying to the world, I don't want to be distracted. I don't want a big phone. I don't need a big phone. People who need big phones are trying to distract themselves from the world. And yeah, I just gravitated towards those kinds of people. I talked with the homeless guy. Name was Keith. And he just went on walks, you know. He's just walking all day. He had a homeless shelter housing. It wasn't a homeless shelter. It was an affordable housing thing that he got for free from, I don't know, social services. But very small room just for him. Has a bed, and he spent his days just going on walks. You know, enjoying the present, being in the moment. I learned a lot from that conversation. I think I took a lot away from it. Just as I did take away a lot from the conversation I had today with Sue at the thrift store. You know, the more you can be in the moment, I think the slower time goes, the more you can actually appreciate things. Sue was the perfect embodiment of this, I think, because, you know, she had a plot of land, many acres, many acres, that she saved up for, and you can't get to it with the road. You got to take an ATV into this land, and her goal is to build a little cabin on this land, which she's doing right now, and to live on this piece of land in this little cabin. You know, with solar panels, with you know cell connection, so she can get some Wi-Fi, watch some movies. And she's saying, like, what more could you possibly want, you know? Just a little place that's secluded. That's not... She also did find value in talking to people and being out in the city and, you know, really connecting with others. And when you're out in the country, you don't get that. Like, it's completely secluded. So she sort of, like, was trying to find a balance between being out in the country, working on her cabin, and, you know, coming out into the city and, you know, enjoying herself, meeting people, making connections. That's all that life is, you know, just making a balance. It's always on a tightrope. Because if you're alone with your thoughts for too long, you end up with Theodore Kaczynski, Mr. Teddy K. And if you're too social, you don't really get the time to explore who you are as a person. Anyway, just thought I'd talk a little bit about living before I sign off for the night, get to bed, have some dinner. Also, my mom's home, so I will see you later. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.